Hey guys, what's going on? It's your boy RJ Game News USA, and today we're going to talk about the IGN review of Yoshi and the Mysterious Book. So if you like this kind of content, like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. Now, we're going to get to a video where we're going to react to it, but first, let me set this up for you. As you guys know, Mixtape recently got a 10 out of 10 from IGN. It's one of the few games that is actually a higher score than what Metacritic gives a game. IGN lately has been brutal on reviews of games. Mostly being 15, 20 points down compared to the Metacritic score. That's what we have going on here. Tom Marks gave Yoshi and the New Book a 6 out of 10, which is equivalent to a 60 on the Metacritic scale. Metacritic gave the game an 80. So IGN finds itself, again, on the lower end of the review stick, much like they have been for other popular games this year, like Soros, like Crimson Desert. So, we've been kind of following this out and out, what feels almost like corruption or imbalance as far as the reviews go between people. I will say Tom Marks is a seasoned veteran, and I'm not going to sit here and slander him and say that every one of his reviews sucked. I do think he has lowballed a lot of Nintendo games, and then I have instances where he, I think, went too high on some Nintendo games. That's what a difference of opinion is. Let's go over some of his previous reviews. So, Tom Marks reviewed Legend of Zelda's Echoes of Wisdom and gave that game a 9, which, I gotta be honest, I'd rather play Yoshi in the new Mysterious Book. Okay, he gave, what else did he do? He gave Blue Prince a 9, which Blue Prince is like an indie puzzle game. I played it on stream before. That game sucks. I don't know why it reviewed as well across the board as it did. It's not better than what, looks like Yoshi and the Mysterious Book is. Okay? He's also famous for reviewing Tears of the Kingdom, which he gave a perfect score to. He reviewed Hollow Knight Silksong. This is definitely a veteran reviewer, mostly Nintendo-leaning reviewer. He's been on NVC before, the Nintendo podcast for IGN. So, I'm interested to see what he has to say about Yoshi and the Mysterious Book and see why he gave it such a low score. So let's find out why, starting now.
It's always a drag when a game you're looking forward to disappoints, but it's even sadder when it shows you exactly how it didn't have to at the same time. Plenty of games miss the mark in some way, but the ones that prove they have promise, that show you a spark but not any kindling, are the real letdowns. Yoshi and the Mysterious Book's spark ignites a little over halfway through, and it burned so hot I literally shouted with joy, only to watch that ember fade away shortly after. Its creative creature designs are truly impressive, and the open-ended levels they live in can be a real delight to explore the first time through. But its best ideas often go unnurtured, which makes this tome feel less like a fantasy novel and more like a biology textbook. A collection of amusing experiments paired with a pile of homework.
Yeah, so, already, one of the reasons I wasn't interested in Yoshi in the New Book was its structure being more open-ended, which is fine for some games. It's not really what I'm looking for in a 2D platformer, looking for creatures in a book. And as far as platformers go, I've always said this. I think Yoshi's the weakest in the Nintendo lineup. Mario is clearly the strongest, then Donkey Kong, then Kirby. And I think there's a giant gap before you hit Yoshi. I recently did a Yoshi Day stream on my channel, and I gotta be honest, guys, I wasn't impressed with anything I saw from Yoshi. Yeah, there's plenty of games I didn't play in the series. I still think Yoshi's Island is the best game of the series, but even then, we're looking at a 7 out of 10. I've played Woolly World and Crafted World. I've dropped full price in those games before on the Wii U and the Switch, respectively, and on Yoshi's New Island on the 3DS as well. I've tried and tried to get into Yoshi games, and I just really can't. I just find myself thinking Yoshi is best off being a character that Mario is writing. I really want Yoshi to be in Nintendo games. I just want him to be Mario's companion more than anything else. I really don't like a lot of his solo entries. So that's where I'm at with the series.
Yoshi and the Mysterious Book is a puzzle platformer that puts its emphasis squarely on the puzzle part. Each level is based around some novel little creature, or sometimes...
That's the reason. That's the reason. I already knew what the game was like without even having to play it the way they described it. It's a puzzle platformer that focuses strictly on the puzzling. That's not what I want from a platformer. I'm sorry, it's not what I want. But I understand they want to be different. You can't have Yoshi, Kirby, Donkey Kong, and Mario all doing the exact same shit. Or else, why do that?
Sometimes quite big creature that Yoshi must lick, lift, and lob to learn all he can about it. These bits of information are logged as discoveries, and they range from how this flower person's petals turn orange when it eats an apple, to how this murderous scythe monster can't see you in tall grass. Discoveries can also be about the level itself, rewarding you for breaking tough objects, finding hidden smiley flowers, or just reaching an end goal. Although even that won't actually end the level if you want to keep exploring. I really liked never quite knowing what I was in for when I hopped into a new stage. The breadth and variety here is definitely something to celebrate, too. There are dozens of unique creatures, nearly all of which are charming to look at and carry some decently interesting mechanical gimmick for their level to be built around. A green critter that has the head of a bubble wand, a jellyfish that acts as a jetpack, bubblegum guys that multiply excessively when hopped on, a drill-nosed warthog you can ride, an explosive tree nut, and so many more.
I just feel like they've made the mistake with the discovery system. Like, I feel like if you just have this be a normal-ass platformer with these creatures and the levels that I'm looking at on screen, you could have had something here, right? You could have had something. I think the discovery system blows. I think that it feels like a chore. It feels like annoying Ubisoft-like side quest and freaking Assassin's Creed. It doesn't feel like what I would want to do in a platformer. In addition to the fact that I think Kirby, Donkey Kong, Mario are all better than Yoshi, even if I bring in a bunch of third-party platformers like Sonic, like Mega Man, like even the older Castlevania games, those are better platformers. Even if I bring in other 2D games like Metroid or the old 2D Zeldas, it's just better than Yoshi games. What they needed to do was basically make what they did with Super Mario Wonder, but make it with Yoshi. Make it crazy, make it weird, but make it a little challenging, fun, and make it like a 2D platformer like that. You know what I mean? While we get a big 3D Mario. But like I said, my preference is still, I would rather in that big 3D Mario or in a 2D Mario, just ride Yoshi. I want Yoshi in the game. I just don't think he necessarily needs his own series anymore. I really don't believe that.
You even have free reign to name each one yourself, which is a degree of control I should not be trusted with.
Let's see.
Designed to both teach you about that creature and then take advantage of it to complete some goal. Only a small handful of which are the typical go-to-the-right structure you might expect from previous Yoshi games. An early level about bees has you recovering stolen flowers, while one about a fisherman wants you to reel in the biggest fish in the pond. All the while, you'll be peppered with a near constant stream of discoveries just for trying to figure out where to go or how this particular critter behaves, flooding your brain with dopamine and your screen with stamps that mark your achievements. This constant creativity is a big reason why Yoshi and the Mysterious Book is so pleasant to play, but not all of these levels are created equal. Figuring out how to best travel by Seabird was a fun challenge, but aimlessly running around a Shy Guy village to make them all play music at the same time was far less inspired.
Yes, that's the kind of shit I hate right there. Having to do shit like running around, finding each Shy Guy, making them play music. It's monotonous. I don't want my gaming to be monotonous. I just don't.
Levels that rely on some disappointingly wonky physics interactions were a particular low spot across the board, with things like ricocheting a spinning top, surfing over a wobbling pirate ship, or wall jumping on a springy bug being truly frustrating at times in a way Nintendo platformers don't typically blunder into. The other big issue is that these levels are all about discoveries, so once most of them have been made, the actual levels lose a lot of their appeal. There's very little that's intrinsically fun or interesting about completing these stages after the map is already covered with your past accomplishments, which makes revisiting them to find discoveries you missed, which is the entire pitch of what Yoshi and the Mysterious Book wants you to do, a lot less amusing. This is basically a stack of themed sheets of bubble wrap. Bubble wrap is fun to pop, but unless you're really serious about bursting every single bubble, no matter how mundane they may be, you're mostly just left playing with a limp piece of plastic after that first pass. This wouldn't be such a big problem if later levels asked you to put discoveries you'd made into practice in more interesting or creative ways, but therein lies Yoshi and the Mysterious Book's greatest letdown. Many creatures will reappear in later pages, asking you to use or interact with them to make discoveries about the newest research subject, but these interactions are typically pretty straightforward. The maps themselves are so small that there isn't much room for the newest creature to share the spotlight while you're learning about it. About half the levels have a variant version that does put the focus on a specific creature interaction that wasn't in the main course, and these are often some of the more interesting tasks you can find, but they're also exceptionally brief more often than not. And look, if you're screaming at your screen that of course it's simple because it's meant for kids, well, I played it with my 3-year-old and she wasn't really into it either.
Yeah, that's a problem when 3-year-olds can't seem to find the challenge and enjoyment in the game. And I mean, look, I'll defend Kirby left and right. I know Kirby can be easy as shit, okay? But I'll defend Kirby over some Yoshi games. I really will. The only thing about Yoshi games literally can, at times, bore you to tears. Like, there are aspects of Yoshi games where it's like, this is fun, when it feels like a Mario game. When it doesn't, it just usually misses. And this feels like a miss.
As you started to dip
I mean, I'm a Nintendo fan. I should be salivating at the mouth to play a new Yoshi game. Instead, my money's going to be going to like 007 First Light or Directive 8020 this month. So it's like Nintendo drops the ball again. And that's been a lot of Nintendo's first half of this year. You know, yeah, I had Mario Tennis Fever. It was fine. It was good. But Pocopia is not for me, which is fine. It sold a lot. They don't need me. Tomodachi Life is definitely not for me. Yoshi and the New Book's not for me. Splatoon Raiders probably isn't for me. The only thing I'm really looking forward to that is actually has a release date for Nintendo is Star Fox.
A moderated toe into different games with me over the last year, she's loved watching small doses of stuff like Kirby and the Forgotten Land or even Tears of the Kingdom. But there's just so little meat or momentum to many of Yoshi and the Mysterious Book's non-linear levels that they haven't kept her usually attentive interest for long. Do you want to keep playing Yoshi?
No.
What do you want to play?
Kirby.
You like Kirby more? Yeah? Okay, we'll play Kirby.
Wow! First of all, I don't think it's the greatest idea to have your 3-year-old talking to the review. But that aside, that just showed you right there she would rather play Kirby than play Yoshi. Now, Tom Marks did review Kirby the Forgotten Land plus Starcross World, the Switch 2 version of Kirby. He gave it only a 7. I think that game's a 9, personally. I think Kirby the Forgotten Land is the best Kirby game of all time. He only gave it a 7, so I feel like even if he was planning on giving Yoshi a 7, he literally couldn't. He's like, look, listen, I gave Kirby a 7. This game has to be at least a 6. I can't give it any higher than that. That's what I think my rationale is for his score.
Kirby instead. The major exception to this missing depth is the last level of Chapter 6, which is so good that it quite literally should have been what the entire game was built around, but sadly that's far from the case. Bear with me here a bit because Nintendo's pre-release video restrictions prevent me from actually showing you the level, but I can tell you about it, and it's worth digging into. In this stage, Yoshi can essentially summon any creature you've met before, one at a time, and it completely recontextualizes everything you've done up until that point in a way that made me genuinely jump out of my seat. Suddenly all that research you were doing was actually training, and it's up to you to figure out how to scale that waterfall, dig through that mountain, or fight that enemy. For a game all about...
Okay, so what this sounds like is they spent way too long on the training part of the game, like 5 worlds of it, just doing discoveries, and then you really only have fun with it in World 6, where you can put it to creative use. That's a mistake, Nintendo. You gotta understand something. And this goes for all games. The best parts of your game need to be the most parts of your game. It's really that simple. So, for example, I take a game like Highguard, where you're spending so much time building resources before you get to the fun shit. The funnest shit about Highguard is going after the sword. And that's the phase you did the least. Right? Well, the funnest part about Yoshi in Mysterious Book is using the discoveries you found in unique ways, in creative ways, in exploratory ways, rather than just gaining more discoveries. So Nintendo's got to learn, hey, we cannot do more than 10 to 25% of our game on an extended tutorial. Just like Mario Tennis Mario Tennis Fever spent like 80% of the story mode training for the last 20% that was actually cool. Like, this is another Nintendo mistake. The learning cannot outpace the good parts of the game that the learning got you to. That needs to be automatically figured out right off the bat. All of World 1 could have been discoveries. Figuring it out together. And then starting in World 2, minimum by World 3, everything should be up to your creative freedom as far as the discoveries go. They flubbed this by waiting too long.
Experimentation and discovery, it's one of the very few times you're given the power to actually get creative and truly apply what you've learned. This level rules. The moment it was thought up, the dev team should have centered everything else around it. I wish every chapter ended with a stage like this that applies your knowledge of the creatures you just met before it. And I was at least expecting its arrival roughly 8 hours in to signal an Act 2 of sorts that put this mechanic front and center. Instead, Yoshi and the Mysterious Book pretty much pretends like it never happened and mostly goes back to business as usual as it introduces more and more creatures it will never make full use of. It's such a bummer, man. Nearly every level was amusing to some degree on my first run through it, but I started to get tired of how shallow the creature exploration felt as early as Chapter 3.
Damn.
I held out hope that I simply hadn't gotten to some turning point like this yet, but that's truly what this game wants to be. A series of cute gimmicks, each with a big checklist of boxes to methodically tick off for little other reason than the love of hearing that pop.
Knock, knock,
Yeah.
Capital One.
That's not great. I'm not sure why game companies feel as though they have to handhold you for so long of the game or give you delayed gratification when it's like, dude, most people don't even finish their games, right? So why don't you start off with more of a bang? Why don't you try to hook them in a little bit better than this? You know what I mean? That 3-year-old he's talking about, his daughter, will never get any further than towards the beginning of the game to go see the cool shit you could do in Chapter 6. Nintendo's got to make some adjustments, in my opinion.
To be shown what this enticing concept could have been used for instead, and then have the rug pulled out from under me right after, left a sour taste in my mouth that none of the chapters and challenges that followed ever managed to make up for. You're rarely asked to build in this sandbox, just to dig for the marbles buried beneath it.
Yeah, it's even worse. Even though he had to wait so long to do something really cool with the discoveries, makes it even worse to immediately go back to not being able to do cool shit with the discoveries again, even so late in the game. That makes it even more egregious, for sure.
To its credit, there are a ton of discoveries to find, and some of them are genuinely well hidden or tricky to sniff out. So I imagine this game will appeal to the type of completionist that does just love the pop. There's a built-in
I'm not a completionist. Dude, there is not enough hours in the day with the stuff I cover on the channel, with living life, with working, with everything going on in my life, I am not going to sit here as a grown-ass man and fucking try to pop little achievements or pop little discoveries on Yoshi and the Mysterious Book that are hidden away, tucked away. That is not at all the kind of game that I want to be playing. Now, like I said, that may be for some people. That may be for Gerard the Completionist to do. That ain't me. That ain't me.
A hint system that lets you spend a plentiful currency called tokens to see which ones you're missing and how to find them too, so it never leaves you flailing in the dark wondering what hyper-specific interaction you may have not tried yet. The tools are there to make discovery hunting a relatively painless process. It's just never a particularly rewarding one.
Yeah, if it's not rewarding, why do it?
The collectible I was more inclined to track down all of were the smiley flowers. There are generally somewhere in the range of 3 to 6 per level, hidden in very classic Yoshi platformer ways, usually asking you to reach certain spots or uncover secret areas where they're tucked away. Yoshi and the Mysterious Book has plenty of similarities to previous Yoshi games and stuff like its egg throwing and flutter jumping, but it doesn't actually share a whole lot of DNA in a practical sense. That's totally fine, and I dig when a developer experiments with a series in interesting ways. But something about hunting for flowers was just satisfying in a way that asking variations of, "Have I tried dunking this nerd underwater yet?" wasn't. Collecting those flowers was fun enough on its own, but the reward you get for doing so has got to be one of the most perplexing unlockables I have ever seen in any video game.
Really?
Not available until after Chapter 6, which again took me about 8 hours to finish, and I only spent another 5 or 6 after that to finish every available level. 5 smiley flowers can be exchanged for a new UI element. This melted...
That's sad! Pathetic! Exchanging the flowers you earned for a new UI element. Come on! That is crap, dude. I'm gonna say a couple nice things about the game. Looks gorgeous. It looks nice. Probably controls well. The music's probably fine. It's about, looks like roughly 15 hours maybe. 12 to 15 hours. It's fine. But, this review's talking me out of this game more than it is talking me into it, for sure.
Mountain of nonsensical HUD options range from a chat log for your bookish companion Mr. E to graphs that tell you the flavor profile of anything you lick. There are multiple ways to measure speed, water quality, temperature, and a whole host of other variables that no level ever asks you to care about in any way. Nothing about the system is offensive or distracting, but very little about it is helpful either. Apart from a clock that I imagine speedrunners will appreciate, pretty much the only useful one I've unlocked so far is a radar that points toward nearby smiley flowers. Even stuff like displaying Yoshi's remaining health, which you're never told he even has before you unlock that option, is ultimately pointless when no amount of damage will actually defeat him. Its customizable nature also allows you to cover...
You can't die! You can't die! But you get a heart counter! Yeah, I'm sorry, man. Like, look. If you can't die in a video game, what's the fucking point? There has to be some level of, I don't know, tension or fear of death in some way. Now, I'm not a huge fan of, like, restart a whole level and lose 20 minutes of your life. But think about Rayman Legends. Difficult as hell in some sections, but super replayable because your amount of replay isn't a lot to get to where you were. There's many checkpoints, which makes Rayman Legends a very tolerable game that you power through. This is the opposite, okay? There's uninteresting shit going on, and there's no fear of death. This is why I was never a fan of a game like Kirby's Epic Yarn, which people loved for some reason. But I didn't.
Cover your entire screen in unhinged garbage for no reason, which is a kind of commitment to the bit I actually admire more than anything else. I don't remotely understand this, but I guess I at least respect it in a weird way.
No, that looks ugly. That looks ugly as fuck to add those unnecessary UI items. That is a horrible reward. Horrible.
Yoshi and the Mysterious Book is an undeniable delight, with adorable storybook creatures that are amusing to learn about in your first surprise-filled encounters with them. But while there's an impressive variety on display, it comes at the cost of depth. Nearly all of its best ideas are left to wilt on the vine, especially one clever mechanic that could have supported an entire game on its own, but instead arrives far too late and then disappointingly disappears. Its open-ended levels certainly had me smiling, but a lot less after the first run through. The long list of potential discoveries also offers too few moments to take what you've learned and think creatively to solve a problem. That's a significant weakness for a game that's all about experimentation. The result is the most charming video game bubble wrap you'll ever pop, and not much more.
Alright, so that's his review. I gotta say, I mostly think the review was done well. Actually. You could argue they did Yoshi dirty, but I would argue I think the Metacritic being 80 is too high for a game like this. It really is. There's some glazing going on here, for sure. Yeah, I don't know, guys. Like, if you want to play Yoshi in the new book, Mysterious Book or whatever, I wouldn't hold it against you. Just like I wouldn't hold it against you that if you like Pokemon Pocopia or Tomodachi Life, you know, we all don't have to like the same stuff. There's plenty of games I can buy and invest my time into. So I'm not going to completely shit all over this game. It's not a failure. It does what it sets out to do. At the end of the day, you, the viewer, will have to decide if you want to purchase this game. I cannot recommend it. Unless you were a super fan of the Yoshi series. But other than that, that's it, guys. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching the video. And until next time, this is your boy RJ signing out. Have a good one. Yoshi!